There's a very peculiar pasuk in this week's parsha. It's a three-word pasuk. Vayeshev Yitzchak b'Gerar. Yitzchak lived in Gerar. Let me explain why it's so peculiar. It says in this week's parsha that Yitzchak was living in Israel, the land of Israel, and there was a famine. And Yitzchak went to the Gerar, which was also in the land of Israel, with plans to go down to Egypt. Rashi explains the reason why Yitzchak planned to go down to Egypt was because he knew that when his father Abraham experienced a famine in the land of Israel, he went to Egypt. So Yitzchak assumed if it was good enough for Abraham, it's good enough for Yitzchak. In the next pasuk, Hashem appears to Yitzchak, and he tells him, you shouldn't go down to Egypt. Okay, so if I were to ask you, where was Yitzchak at this point? The answer is obvious. He was in Gerar. It said so in the previous pasuk. God told him not to proceed to Egypt, so obviously he's in Gerar. After Hashem speaks to Yitzchak, the very next pasuk says, Vayeshev Yitzchak b'Gerar. Yitzchak lived in Gerar. What a strange pasuk. Dor HaChaim has a very simple explanation of this pasuk, but I think it's a very significant life lesson. Dor HaChaim says that Yitzchak now resolved to stay in Gerar. In other words, he had a plan. He was sure of what he should do. He was confident that the best way to deal with the famine was the path of Abraham before him, to go down to Egypt. That was the plan. God tells him no. Dor HaChaim says we need a pasuk in the Torah to convey that Yitzchak now changed his outlook, changed his attitude, and there was a new plan A. We have to do that all the time in life. We don't have the tremendous opportunity of Hashem specifically telling us what to do or not to do when we have dilemmas. But so many times we think things through, we have a plan, and we start going down a certain road, and then we realize it's not working. And to be able to say, okay, this is obviously not what I'm supposed to do. Let me figure out what I'm supposed to do next. And get excited about the next option is easy to talk about, hard to do. But according to Dor HaChaim, that's a very significant lesson which Yitzchak teaches us through his life in this week's Parsha. Have a wonderful Shabbos.